before we actually hit like go live is I want to make sure people can hear your audio coming through there.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
that's fine.
Yeah, so don't completely jack it up and we lose, you know. So we'll hit it in here in like 2-3 minutes or whatever. Ba-da-da-da dun 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 dun. Dig it dun 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 dun. Whoo! All right, there we are live, baby. All right, let me just see here. So I got Matt on the phone, and I want to see if you guys can hear him before we hit our intro and we get really piping and we get really going here. I just want to see if you guys can hear him. So, Matt, how you doing, buddy? How's Hawaii?
Woo, man, it is a wild honeymoon vacation. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, because I got here, then I got COVID. So, haven't haven't done as much exploring as I wanted. You and I tried to record the other day. Internet was not as well as we wanted. The part of Hawaii we're in is called Hawaii.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the islands. It's actually like, I guess it's the oldest island.
Okay.
And it's not as touristy. It's actually like the population here is pretty small. Like everything's like, I don't know. It's just like it definitely does not feel touristy whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think it's like the entire island population is like 70,000.
Oh, dang, dude. Dang. It's so real.
Yeah, it's like real rural. Yeah. Yeah, totally different than like Honolulu or Maui or, and anything like that. So
right,
real small. So but it's pretty cool. It's we've been driving around. We had to cancel some stuff. Teresa, fortunately, didn't have COVID.
Right.
She just got it yesterday. We knew that was going to happen at some point, but before she was able to, she masked up and still went to some stuff. But whatever. So we're sort of making the best of it and still having fun and still been eating out and stuff like that. But it's still pretty cool. Jurassic Park was filmed here, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. Nice. All right, man. Yeah, so they said they can hear you loud and clear, like a middle. Jimmy said, like it sounds like you're coming through the middle school PA system.
Oh, really?
Well, no, it's great. It's a telephone call. It's the whole point. It's great. So, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is what it is. So, Ez and I will be hanging out. We're gonna be doing the pre-show here. I think some people might be listening on Apple Premium or perhaps Patreon. But the hot button issue is, I think we should talk about in the pre-show. Because I think most ever going to be listening to this after episode 4 of House of the Dragon has come out. But what have we thought so far about House of the Dragon, and then maybe its sort of place, sort of looking at it compared to other fantasy shows that have come out. There's actually some other ones coming out this year that I even sort of forgot Willow was coming out when I saw it. Wow. I mean, like, so it's kind of like great not only to have more Game of Thrones back, but I think the fantasy realm as a whole, and then you and I actually have yet to talk about Rings of Power together, and it is sort of, so I think some people are disheartened by like the comparisons between the two, but it's not a verse sort of thing. In a way, it kind of is though, because they did sort of come out against, sort of against each other the same week. So what do you kind of think about? What do you think about House of the Dragon so far, just as like a return of Game of Thrones?
Yeah. So, and when we get to it, I actually read a really interesting article about the differences between Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. And by the way, you're right. Like, it's inevitable. I mean, if Obi-Wan Kenobi was coming out at this time, we'd be comparing Obi-Wan Kenobi to House of the Dragon. We'd be comparing Stranger Things to, and the extra factor there is that it's fantasy. George R.R. Martin is a fan of Tolkien, right? Like, Tolkien was the author of The Century, how's it doing, etc. So I think it's fun and fair to kind of, go back and forth between the two. But as far as House of the Dragon, I really do feel like it's I feel like it's good. I feel like it's really good. One of the things in just in terms of like people coming into it, and I had to like catch myself a couple weeks ago, not going super deep into spoilers because so many people are just show only people, and these are show verses, and that's what I love about them. The same thing is happening with Rings of Power and other stuff. When they're based in literature, you've kind of got to like say, okay, how do we make this um easy to access? You know what I mean? Like how sort of almost like your interface when you like you have a phone, right? We have our Apple phones. We talk about user interface and how easy is it to navigate or to get right into it and start using it. Like it could have a lot of really cool features and cool layers, but if it's super confusing and intimidating and hard to use and you have to put in the time to sort of learn a lot about it, I think that's tough. And so House of the Dragon, I would actually say, as we get just drifting right, kind of right into this, has been very user friendly because it's only a couple hundred years ago. The setting is still the same. King's Landing is there. The Targaryens, so on, all these different houses and stuff. So to me, it feels like you can hop right in there and go, okay, I get this. I know I've heard that house. I know these people. I know these, different things. And so like there's more dragons for sure. And you're trying to catch up very quickly on the dynamics and all those things. So there's less of a learning curve. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely agree. I mean, even like last week, I think seeing House Lannister show up, right? And he just sort of he shows up and he's sort of like smug and, like, oh, Casterly Rock is so great. And it's like, Jesus Christ, shut up, bro. You know what I mean? And so I think that I think they are doing a great job. Even when we heard like Regan Stark or Rickard Stark, right?
Yeah.
In episode 1, whoa, it's just fun and cool to see that stuff, and it definitely just feels already. It feels much more like we're back, and I think we talked about this where it is the familiar places where they're sitting on the same Iron Throne, it's the same rooms, it's King's Landing.
Yeah,
and it looks, while it's different, it still feels the same. So I think that's an advantage that this show has for it over, other shows like Rings of Power. Wheel of Time is still new, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, ooh, what are we going to see? Whereas this is just so much easier to walk into.
Right. So I would even say too, like the reason Rings of Power is getting compared to House of the Dragon so much is that they both are like prequel shows. They're both in fantasy. They both have like media adaptations that we love. I mean, the trilogy. I mean, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and say out front, I think both the shows are awesome, and I think more for me, I'm just understanding that people have it's the access to it and which one is easier. And this article again that I read was talking about which one was easier to access or which one was people could get into the story and then quickly pick up on things, right? So for example, my wife, when she's watching House of the Dragon and when she's watching Rings of Power, I'm trying to pay attention to how many questions does she have? And, again, questions in terms of like interest-based questions, like, or questions to where I'm confused about this. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're just interested in that character and you want to know more or whatever versus like, hey, why did they do this or why did they do that or what's really going on? So it's interesting, I think, to kind of think about it from that perspective a little bit and just how people can kind of come into it and approach it because the budgets are insane for both of these shows, and they're really beautiful. The thing too, I will say, the acting across the board every single time. We're going to see it again tonight on episode 4. The acting has been superb in House of the Dragon. Really, I was worried a little bit about some of the younger actors, but they are stealing the show for me.
Oh my God, yeah,
stealing it. Yeah, so I think that's been really, really, really cool. So let's talk things that are familiar, right? So when you get into House of the Dragon and you're back on, like as Matt said, you're back on that Iron Throne and you're back in King's Landing, and so you're like, okay, I recognize that, I get that, I liked Game of Thrones, I see this, it's good. When you go to Rings of Power, what you're recognizing there, I think surprisingly, the most recognizable thing so far for me in the spirit and what they've captured has been the Harfoots. Like instantly, you're kind of getting that they have, even though they're like traveling hobbits, I don't know, like it's not even the Shire. It's not even like a place we recognize. They're a people. They're a group that you're like, okay, I get them. I recognize them. And that was the other thing. There's a decision in terms of like the elves not having longer hair, and some people saying, oh, okay. I mean, they still have the pointy ears, and so they're still elves, but they don't. And again, you have different companies too owning these things. So like more could have been done. This is again Amazon trying to do there's elements in that show that are like love letters to the trilogy because the guys who made it are fans of the trilogy and fans of the book series.
Right.
But legally, Matt, they can't do certain things, or they make creative decisions that distinguish themselves from that show. And so that's tough. I think an advantage to House of the Dragon is that same company, same people working on the same stuff. And again, the same sets, it's not that far removed. Whereas like the trilogy was it was produced and made a long time ago, the people who worked on it. So there's little like nods and these references or allusions to it, but it's just, I think it's been a little bit more, I think the story still makes sense and everything is easy to kind of access that way, but yeah.
Well, I think the worlds are much like the world of Tolkien is much harder. And I think, first of all, let me say, I think that Rings of Power is an okay show.
Yeah.
I know I rail on it on social media quite a bit. I think it definitely has some flaws that are like really bad in it. Like, so just like, but a lot of that's like story writing and like shots where I'm just like, I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but like this shot but like structurally, I think the show's okay. If it worked more to the ring, I think it would just be sort of like, oh, this is a cool, interesting show. That's just sort of fine. I think it's a bigger problem is that it's like, Amazon went out and spent $1 billion on it, and it's Lord of the Rings, and so the expectations are astronomical going into it. And I think that Tolkien and Lord of the Rings in general is hard to get into.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really, it's like, yeah, you can go watch those movies, like the old Lord of the Rings movies, but like the names are like confusing.
Yeah.
Like just like small stuff like that. It's like it's not as easy as Game of Thrones, where like in Lord of the Rings, there's a lot of stuff. You have elves, dwarves, humans, hobbits, wizards, Sauron. Then you have like different kinds of magic and all this. I mean, it's bigger and bigger. Whereas Game of Thrones is we're all essentially humans, except for the Targaryens, who are humans like with special blood that gives them the ability to ride dragons, and they can sort of avoid like grayscale. And then you basically just got like the others, the White Walkers. I mean, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Like and then like there's dragons. Like they do a lot of the stuff they do is so sort of like surface level that you don't have to go like deep into everything. And so you don't have to spend so much more time like focusing on that world building and stuff like that. And then you just focus on the story. And I think it's kind of one of the things that I think made The Walking Dead so good, at least in its early seasons, was like it was never really about say like what created this huge pandemic and a zombie show. No, it's just a story, but that's like the setting they chose. Whereas the story is still good. And I think for me at least, like Rings of Power is the story still trying to find itself, at least in these first few episodes. Maybe by the end of the season it'll kind of get there. But I think just Rings of Power had a much more immediate hook.
Yeah. Well, and
or excuse me, House of the Dragon.
Yeah, I understood you.
Immediate hook.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think too, also like again, just in terms of proximity in season 8, and Daenerys, and we're still talking about Jon Snow. I mean, they're just way ahead. It has all that going for it too. It's got this I don't know, recency, not bias, but like there's people remember it. And you go back and like if I were to ask my students now like about Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, they haven't seen it. It's a movie. It's old. It's old.
Like 20 years old,
which is crazy. It's beautiful. It's a masterpiece. It's awesome. But like, it's been a long time. And as you said, one of the things that people compliment Tolkien for is his masterpiece in terms of like the world that he built and all the things that he was sort of doing in terms of like the first and the second age. Dude, it's so big that like he didn't finish it. Like his son tried to piece some of it together and finish it. So it's not even like completed. And there are some slight like variations in terms of, he was editing and redrafting and all that kind of stuff. So it's just it was really just a playground for him as this sort of writing savant, this literary genius who wanted to just kind of play around and mess around in this world. And like you said, it can be, I think, a little daunting for folks to get to kind of get into. The big hope here, and I think what Amazon is trying to do, is to make it very much like with the show. You come in and like they're going to tell you the story. You know what I mean? They're even for me summarizing some stuff. I'm like, all right, this is awesome. And they're making their nods, making their references. They're bringing up characters, Matt, full on I've never heard of. Some of them are actually just made up for the show, and then some of them are, their characters I've heard about, but I didn't know their backstory, because even for me, it's been daunting to the point where I'm like, look, I don't have the time. I can't invest the time and energy into that backstory and that first age yet. There'll come a day, maybe, but I just haven't had a chance to really dive into it. And I run a Tolkien podcast. I mean, like literally,
Right.
So there is that. And I want to say, I guess a couple more things here real quick, because I feel like the show, like you said, it's going to hit its stride. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. It has a lot of things going for it. But I am hoping that I don't know, just that people can go into it and have this experience and get hooked in. Several people are in the comments here saying like they love the visual, they're loving some of these characters and some of the relationships, but like they haven't been like hooked just yet. Like they're not entirely hooked. I mean, I am, but again, I'm on a different. It depends on. We're not talking about people like me, because people like me,
right, where you're like, "Ooh, is this going to be this thing?" Those people don't even know to look for that.
They don't even exactly, and so that's the big challenge. You know what I mean? Is to hook those people. Okay, that's actually one of the things, Matt. You have people like you and I who like run a Game of Thrones, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. So we know that lore, we know the things to look for, and we're all about it, right? If this show comes out and it just disregards the lore and changes stuff, I mean, I don't know. You and I would have to like kind of like Wheel of Time did, right? A little bit. It's like it's an adaptation. You have to completely just suspend your I don't know, like reality. You have to make a show reality and then a book reality or whatever. So there's a huge fan base. I mean, like a decade's worth of fans coming to Rings of Power, and they know the lore so well that like the thread, the needle there is to please them and to give them something, but also expand the audience, and they won't let that happen. There's a gatekeeper mentality in Tolkien sometimes that says, no, this is our thing, and it's super like it's for intellectual people. It's for, like I don't know. It just feels that there's that feel.
Right.
Even me stepping into it sometimes, I'm sort of like, hey guys, how's it going? Like I'm waiting in there, and it's sort of like, well, hold on. Do you know what happened to Finrod in the first age when Beren and Luthien, in the Beren and Luthien story? Like, no, not exactly. But can I still sit down and talk with you guys? Sorry, come back when you've learned more. I mean, so that's a hurdle you have to kind of like touch the fan base, but at the same time expand it. So I don't know, man. It's tough.
It just so far for me, the best part of Rings of Power was honestly like episode 2, Elrond and the dwarf.
Yeah.
Because he shows up and they've got this backstory and like they were friends, and then they hit on something that like even like this is the thing and this is where like House of the Dragon is just like, and Game of Thrones in general like just crushes it. Any HBO show, to be honest, because they just know how to handle it. No matter like what the setting is, HBO is just so much better at this. Is like, okay, well, so like Elrond showing up and talking to the dwarf, and he's like, hey man, well, you missed 20 years for you. Is like a lifetime for everyone else. And you missed my kids growing up, and you missed all like that's the stuff that like sinks through and is like an emotional thing. And look, we've been there, right? Like people have those experiences in life where like, you've missed hanging out with people, or you've missed like kids' ball games or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like you share that sort of experience. To me, that was like the best thing, because it was like, okay, this is something I can sort of relate with. And then like you use that to then build up other things, and you build up, other like the action sequence. Like for example, last week in House of the Dragon, we got the 6th action sequence, where Daemon goes and he takes on the crab feeder and he goes out there and he's like with the sword gonna lay it down. But the best part about that wasn't that the scene was so sick. It was the moment before when Daemon got the letter from his brother saying like, I'm gonna send you aid. And Daemon gets so pissed that he's like, F this. I'm gonna go end this thing now. Because he's like, so it's like he's so upset that the king is gonna send aid because his whole deal is he wanted to go like prove, that he was able to do this.
Right.
So like that's what made that scene so cool was the added weight of it, of him being like, this is what I'm gonna do. Rings of Power has sort of yet to do that with an action sequence, whereas some of them just so far have felt like we're going to show you this being like this is an action sequence that looks cool just because we have a big budget. And like Galadriel in episode 1 when she sort of like jumps off the boat, right as we're getting ready to go through like the Vale or whatever. Like okay, that was like. Honestly, that's like her best scene. They're messing her up big time. It's not on the actress. It's the writing or something.
But let me comment on that real quick because Lottie was on a podcast earlier today just as a newbie, straight newbie. Went on there. It's like Lord of the Rings watch party, and they're doing something with Fellowship of the Fans or whatever. Great show. Go check it out. Give them some support, some love. She was there and. Somebody came at it from a screenwriter perspective, and they said again, big Tolkien fan, loves a lot of it, but like specifically with Galadriel, what she was wanting is an internal struggle, I guess, that like has dialogue from. So like we're all inferring, yes, it's her brother. We're inferring that there's issues going on there and that she's, wanting something. She wants to complete this quest, still looking for the enemy, all that kind of stuff. But we're not really hearing her articulate it. It's all just, eye gaze, stoic sort of poses and just some anger that's boiling out. And so really the idea there is she's in conflict with the environment around her and people and all that kind of stuff, but it's silent and it's not really we don't really.
It's not shown well.
It's not really, even though like the example you gave with Daemon, see, we got a lot of dialogue with Daemon early in the first couple episodes. And then what he did in this last episode was like, it's almost the opposite, right? Daemon has lots of dialogue. He's talked about by other characters. He himself talks, all these different things. Then you go to episode 3. He doesn't say a daggone word. Even when the letter comes, he just folds it up, starts beating the guy, goes and does his thing. That's sort of the sort of nonverbal approach that Galadriel has had in a lot of these different moments, but yet it's reversed. It's almost like they did that first instead of like having her talk to us. I mean, she does talk out the gate about the story and all that, and so it's there, but it feels super distant. You know what I mean? And it's like it's hard to kind of connect. So it's a choice. I mean, it's like you said, it's a choice in approach and screenwriting. I think it'll totally get there, but I don't think right now, like a lot of people are feeling as connected to her. Right? They're sort of like. She seems to be divisive and feisty, and which is fine also too. But it's just like I think people are struggling a little bit to kind of have an emotional, connection with her. I think it's just the right. I feel like a lot of the other characters that sort of have been handling well, like even some of the Harfoots. I don't know. I felt like it was like the scene of being like, oh, this when the stranger arrives, which actually that's like the best thing going for the show because it's almost kind of like in Wheel of Time when the dragon, like right out of the gate. Yeah.
And so like that to me is like the best thing that the show has going because it's like, well, is it Gandalf? Is it Tom Bombadil? Is it what I mean? Like everyone's like, who is it? Right. That's by far the best thing going for. But some of it's just some of the writing of her character. It's just I don't know. I just feel and like. Because if you go rewatch like the first like little bit, it's like you can tell the actress is trying so hard to not like move her face, but come across as like very aggressive. Like she almost reminds me a little bit of like Reva in the Kenobi series in the first 2 episodes, where she just comes out and she's like so aggressive and it's like so, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like the scene in which
one? Who?
Reva.
Reva. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Like that's almost sorry, yeah, that's fine. That's almost who Galadriel reminds me of right now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Where it's just like it's almost like it feels like so much. It's like what's going on, and then like once we get like some, even though we actually got more backstory of Galadriel than we did her in Kenobi, and it's still like because it starts with her in like the little paper boat or whatever. So
yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like the scene in which she and Elrond are talking, and she's like that you have not seen what I've seen, but I have seen, but you have not seen what I've seen. Is the worst scene I've ever seen, in which people are describing what they have or have not seen in a scene. I mean, that's like,
yeah.
It's like the writing's not doing them any favors right now.
Yeah, and I would say like in that particular. Like I see it with Galadriel, I can kind of listen in on it because Jordan, we have Jordan Rennell's in here as well, who runs the Music of Middle Earth and works with Prancing Pony and stuff like that. And same thing, it's sort of like they are relying a little bit on people who have read to infer sort of what's going on and how they're going to take this whole arc full circle, and how she's very opposite of what we see her later, in the trilogy, and sort of like the intrigue there would be why. The question mark is like, why is she acting this way? But if you don't know, or if you haven't really read, or if it's a little bit more difficult, and eventually they'll get there. But I think they were relying more on people's knowledge about Galadriel to pick up on some of these things. And again, I think our friend Jimmy said too, something about the idea that there is this, they definitely can tell the approach here has been like a slow burn. So I feel like once we get through that, because quite honestly, I think Nori has been really good. This last episode, they just brought in Elendil, and he's an interesting character as well. And the one who I absolutely love is, and I didn't think I would, because Bronwyn, I wasn't so sure about at first, because Bronwyn felt a little bit rough to me. I wasn't as connected to her, but like Arondir in this last episode, I don't care what anybody said. When they drag him in there, the actor looks like he's been beat up. Like his acting is just off the, and then him and his buddies, the throat slit, the whole thing. It was wild. So it's got a little bit more, I think, in terms of just because Galadriel is the protagonist. She's like the main character. So we've got to make sure that lands. You got to get on board with the likes of Luke Skywalker, right? And Harry Potter. You got to get on board with Frodo Baggins. So who is that person you're gonna get behind? Well, if it's Galadriel, right now she seems to be really kind of rough and hard to.
Right. Well, they did give her some emotion in the most awkward horseback riding scene I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Ever. Where it's like this super slow-mo for like 2 minutes, and it's like on her face, and she's smiling. It was almost like that Wheel of Time teaser, of Moraine's like eyes. It was like, what are we supposed to do with this? You know what I mean? But this was like even worse. Okay. Like it was like, hey, we need to stretch this. Okay. I mean, it was weird.
Yeah, that was, we had the individual who I was listening to earlier. I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on her name, but I'll leave a link for her stuff down below. Was talking about the idea that it's like, they're trying to emphasize the smile, and they're trying to emphasize that there's something going on here, but everyone agreed like, hey, if we would have known that she loves riding horses before this, and this was some great joy, it just, like they're showing you that there's a freeness to her. There's something about there is a layer underneath all of this other ice on top, but it's just been hard to kind of see. So that scene, I mean, first of all, if it wasn't like the smile and all of that, the camera work beautiful. I mean, it's stunning. It's like high def, it's all that kind of stuff. It's just the fact that it is so they're using it to like
yeah. Well, here. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
So House of the Dragon has, and like it's like around 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Lord of the Rings is like 39%. They review bombing, whatever. Do you? I guess I don't know. There's probably too touchy the subject. Still on. I don't know. Whatever. But are we surprised that House of the Dragon is just that good that it is sort of beating out like any review bombing that it would have gotten? Because remember, like season 8 hate like going into this, and as well, I mean, some people have said, you know, it also has some racist stuff behind it with the Corlys Velaryon casting, and that has seemed to not affect House of the Dragon, where it did say, you could make the argument it did affect Kenobi, it is affecting Rings of Power. Is it just that House of the Dragon is just that good, and these other shows actually aren't, or it's just not for whatever reason affecting House of the Dragon?
No, I think it's an interesting question. Like why is it that fan base decides, in Star Wars, they actually talk a lot about the toxic fan base. And then we often talk about like the people at the top who are kind of, making this, kind of like we've talked a lot about like having criticism doesn't mean that you are against any of the intentional pushing forward a character, like characters of color or characters from different backgrounds or whatever. When you critique something, that's fair. And so you have vetted critics who go to Rotten Tomatoes and are critiquing all three of those shows, and they all are putting them pretty in the 80s, right? And then you have the fan bases come in. So what is it about House of the Dragon that people are choosing not to go do that? I don't know. I actually think it's more of there's a bigger fan base. Honestly, I know that you can talk about views and everything like that, but like there is a longer, I guess you should say that, like a longer established fan base in Tolkien. You got a bunch of like different folk in Star Wars as well. I mean, so there's people who identify with those and just and maybe they've drifted away. They don't really keep up on it. I have no idea why that has cropped up more so in those fan bases than House of the Dragon. I will say House of the Dragon is awesome. I mean, I honestly thought like Kenobi was a solid, 8 or higher. I even thought, I mean, I think right now, honest to God,
it sort of ended up where we went over this. It sort of ended up where I thought it would be with like a 7. I don't know that I'd have Rings. I mean, I'm not big on Rings of Power. I would not have it at like a 36. I'd have House of the Dragon higher. To me, I mean, like getting an 80, once you're at like that 85 range, like it's really hard to kind of be like above that. Yeah, I don't know. I guess to me, it just shows that's just how good this show is. I mean, think about this for a second. House of the Dragon is more adult, and it's a show. It's not only is it a more adult show, it's a show in which we as fans are adamantly rooting for like incestual relationships.
Yeah.
Whereas like Lord of the Rings, is like the sort of like kid friendly, whatever, and we're still like, nah, we're down, man.
Yeah. So Matt, what do you? Yeah, no,
hold on, man. Red Team reviews it here. Let's go.
There we go, baby. There we go. We got 5 minutes, by the way, till this comes out here. You have some people saying like Rings of Power, straight wokeness, can't deny it. That Kenobi was straight wokeness. Do you think that like those are intentionally like putting in like the like air quote woke ideas? And do you think that House of the Dragon is not?
I don't, I don't know. To be entirely honest, to me here, I don't know. I don't really like. I don't know.
Are people picking where they see wokeness and where they don't see wokeness? You know what I mean?
I would say yes and no to that, and I would also say that I think that some shows definitely like focus on it a bit more. I'd say much more sort of on the Disney side. Like, for example, take like Top Gun Maverick for an example. Like Top Gun Maverick actually had a pretty diverse cast, and they didn't like we had female pilots, and there was some like pilots of color and stuff like that. But like they were never like, oh hey, we I got this job because I'm a woman and like women are great. Like these are just enough pilots, and that's sort of fine. I think like a show like say She-Hulk, for example, is having a difficult time because whatever, I forget the actress name is, but she's like sort of explaining why she gets angry and she gets turned into the Hulk, and she's like, well, it's because I get catcalled and I get jobs, I get jobs taken away from me from men that are more because I'm in a male-dominated field, which absolutely are real and legitimate issues. The sort of problem is that she's explaining this to the Hulk as if like the problems she's facing are more like reasons to turn into the Hulk than what he turned into. And it's like, dude, he's like been to outer space and like lost friends, and, like all sorts of stuff. So it's like it just becomes hard to sort of view as like legit.
Yeah. It's a tricky one. I mean, like, I know people got a lot of different opinions just on it and stuff. And one thing I will say just before we wrap this up, how the episode's about to come out too, a lot of things that I want people to kind of remember, like there's a lot of subjectivity in terms of like what like again, all these critics and these reviews and the fans and stuff, like cinematography. If you thought it looked good, all right, cool. My buddy Cameron, who does like directing and who does camera work and has worked on some different projects. That's the whole point. Like art, like you look at a piece of art and you sort of say, yeah, this looks good to me. And some people are like, that looks like trash. So it's like it does. There is some subjectivity to it, and that's what makes it. I would like to err on the side of like that makes it fun. That's cool. Like that's kind of
if it's as long as at the end of the day, if it's good, it's good. I mean, that's the thing. It was like when everyone was the people out there were complaining about Close Flare, and I was like, I don't know, I think it looks freaking sick.
Yeah, it looks sick.
Like,
no. Yeah.
I think House Valerians look awesome.
Right. All right. Well, hey, that's the pre-show. Because I think the episode's out. I got to find some headphones here real quick so we can switch over here. But I mean, this is it's been good. It's good conversation. Good to talk about episode all these episodes from House of the Dragon and Rings of Power. So it's just interesting time. I really think fantasy is high right now. People are into it. They're loving it. We got more sci-fi coming out, which is essentially space fantasy in terms of Star Wars. So it's a good fall. We're having a good time. So all right.
Absolutely.
Here we go. I got some. All right, man. We got what we got here. We got a minute till comes on.
Yeah, I'm getting it pulled up right now.
Okay. I got to do one of these. I just realized while I was talking to you, I was like, oh shoot, I got to like put the I'm listening to you on the Focusrite,
Right. Yeah. I know. I'm gonna have to do. I gotta figure this out too.
And hey, if you want to call me back, you can also call me back. Whatever works for you, buddy.
I could do that. I can just call you back after. I don't have to necessarily be on for the pre-show for the show.
Yeah, that's fine. That might be easier on your internet and stuff. And then call back in, and we'll do like 10 minutes, and then I'll get Jimmy on here, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll call you back, or I'll call you back right when the episode's over.
Okay. All right, buddy. Talk to you here. All right.
All right. Later.
Bye. All right, friends. We have Lady Charlotte in the house is over here. We are up in our new spot. I guess the episode is out. I'm about to press play here on it, and I'm going to get our timer going. So if you guys want to watch along with me and just sort of watch reactions, all that kind of good stuff, that's really what we're doing here. And I'll press play on the timer here. This is episode 4. Is it out? I'm looking here, guys. Where is it? Hold on a second here. Let's press play. See if I can find it. All right. Next episode. Struggling a bit. Here we go. Boom. Okay, an hour 13, season 1, episode 4. Here we go, people. All right, let's do this. Adrian, hey. Marco, hey. Joseph, Dorian, let's go, people. Jordan, thank you so much, buddy. Jordan, I'd love to talk to you, by the way. Get your perspective on this because you watch both. I'd love to talk to you about Rings of Power and all this good stuff. All right, here we go. We're going to start watching on the count of 3. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, play. Wow, that always happens to me. I'm not skipping anything, by the way. I'm just rolling right into it here, so we'll see how this goes. We'll see if my internet can handle it, to be quite honest with you. All right. There we go. Here we go. Episode is out. Listening right here. Actually, we'll do it like that. Okay. Sorry, guys. I got a preview. I'm not skipping anything. I just sort of press play and we'll see what happens here. Bum, 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 bum. Excuse me. All right, close all these tabs out here. Get a little watch party action going. All right. We got the old recap happening. Crave. I'm sorry, guys. You know what we all can watch? We're not on different things. Amazon, right? Just kidding. Future of the Realm. Hey, Rhaenyra gets to find someone that pleases her. Seriously. All right, sorry guys, I'm still doing still watching the old recap. Sick. HBO, there we go. You guys are probably a little ahead of me, which is fine. All right. Dun, dun. Sweetie, what are you thinking? Gonna be awesome? Fights? Oh, you're fine. You can. Give them a shout out. I'm hoping our internet holds, you know. Ryan, let's go. Good to see you in here. My guy. Dun, 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 dun. Jordan, as soon as you can watch this bad boy, you better, my friend. So I want your thoughts. Dun, 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 dun. Dun. Dun, dun, dun. Great intro. Every time they knock it out of the park. What? Am I that far behind? Am I that far behind? Oh, uh, okay. Is this just a line of people coming to court? Huh? What? What? Whoa. Yeah, House Blackwood, baby. Don't mess. Oh boy. Whoa. Somebody's back. All right. Yeah, everybody gather around. Wow. Whoa. Tension. Well done. For the realm. For the realm. Wow. Oh. Oh boy. Mm. Wow. Wow. I'm I'm Team Allison. Sorry. Anybody else Team Allison? I am. She's sincere. Oh boy. Matt, you're ridiculous. What is she doing? She's going undercover. Matt, what the heck? Oh, secret passages. Oh boy. Wow. I mean, he's clearly up to no good. Whoa. Wow. Yeah, he's messed up. See, Team Allison. Man. A lot is happening right now. Rhaenyra is running away from Daemon for fun. Well, Sir Harwin the Strong. uh what's about to happen here? What in the heck? Oh boy. This is not good. This is not good. Matt's losing his mind. Oh, Matt. Matt, you're killing me, bro. Oh. This is a mistake. What are they thinking? Oh boy. Somebody's in trouble. He's in trouble. What? Guys, Damon's in trouble. And so is Rhaenyra. This is like it's like sneaking out when you're a teenager. Friend tells on you. It's bad. Oh, this is intense. It's intense. What's Otto supposed to do? It's information. Do you want it? Do you not? Oh boy. Here's the shift. Allison she's the queen, bro. Allison is the queen. Let's get this straight. He sure did, and we all watched it. She is lying. Everybody wants to be Team Rhaenyra. Oh my. He's a rogue prince. Team Allison. Team Allison is, I'm sorry. I didn't think it'd go this way, but I am 100% rooting for her. All of you out there still rooting for Rhaenyra, who just lied and coerced Sir Criston Cole into a romance he did not want to be in. Crazy. Allison's trying to stick up for her. Oh boy, there's the dagger. The reminder. That'll give you chills. Oh boy. This episode's intense. Ugh. Okay. Wow. I want to skip ahead here. Is there a preview? Oh yeah, right there. I gotta watch the preview real quick here. Oh, Jimmy, I see you. Sorry, I just hold on one second. Let me just watch this real quick here. Okay. Okay. All right. Oh boy. Hey, so Jimmy, real quick. I see you there. I got Matt's gonna call in here. You'll be able to hear him, but he won't be able to hear you. So we're gonna do like 10 minutes just of like 5 minutes of him and I talking. And then we're gonna like a part 1 and then like a part 2. Here he comes. He's calling in right now. Is it all right?
Yeah, go for it.
Hold that energy because I can feel it. I'm losing my mind here. Okay. Bro, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Well, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me hit this intro and then we'll do our quick little bit here. I got Jimmy on the visual, and then I'll have Jimmy continue on with me. Is that cool?
That sounds perfect.
Okay. Jimmy's like, why is he still on the PA system? What's going on? All right. Here we go. Matt, hit that intro for us. Just give us here we go.
Hello and welcome to Ben and the Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Budman.
And I am Ser Ezra, the Watchful. And friends, we are back with episode 4. And Matt is he is still a ways out there. I can hear you from afar, my friend.
I'm in the steps though. Okay, let me tell you. No, on vacation in Hawaii. We tried to record some stuff the other day. Didn't go down as well because of the internet connection. So I have to do it over the phone. But I'm just here for a few minutes, and then Ez and Jimmy will take over. So Ez, just wow, initial reaction. Okay.
Yeah.
This episode was awesome. I feel we're going much further already with. I feel like it's all about to kick off like next week. It's like, I mean, they showed in that. Did you see the preview? Did you watch the preview yet?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like, wow, so much of the tension that came up in this episode. You're already seeing Daemon and Rhaenyra, their relationship growing, expanding. I think Daemon already realizes, hey, we are potentially stronger together against little Aegon than we would be by ourselves. I'll try to avoid going into like deep spoilers for the rest of the thing, but already you're seeing Daemon, looking at that, and we're seeing that in today's episode. Otto Hightower, boom, got booted out. Yeah. Crazy. And everything else, cinematography, great again. The soundtrack really stood out to me today. It just sort of popped, I guess, off the screen, or whatever, however you want to call it. This, I would say, is probably my third. I'd say it's probably, I'd say it's kind of like episode 2 a bit, where it was a little more dialogue heavy than action heavy. Yeah. Even though there was a little bit. There's even deep lore stuff with like House Blackwood, right? Like, they become like real important, like much later down the line, in between this and Game of Thrones, once you get into like the next sort of big wave of Targaryen stuff. So like that was cool. Just a lot of good political intrigue, setting up stuff. Like Corlys Velaryon wasn't even in this episode, but you could feel the weight of it, and I thought it was good. So, and I'm popping on here just real quick just to get my initial reaction, and you and Jiggy will take over the live stream. Yeah. But absolutely loved it. Another great episode. I'd go probably another 4 out of 5 stars on today's episode for me.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's awesome. We'll do something, later in the week, a little more of a breakdown. But you loved it, right? I mean, Matt, go check the live. He was in here commenting. You had me rolling a few times. Like,
a lot of, a lot of banging in this episode. And we were commenting, and I'll get off here real quick. That people were saying, "Wow, a lot of nudity in this." But like, compared to Game of Thrones, actually, a lot of these like scenes were like, there was like, that going on, but it would be like behind it. You would see it like from behind a veil, or like in between bedposts and stuff like that. So you can definitely see that they are, this is still like a rated R show, but you can still tone a lot of that stuff down to get it to appeal to a wider audience, which is good, because that means it's going to get more viewers, which is already good. So absolutely loved it. I'll hop off here just because the way we have to do this. And I'll be hanging out in the chat for the live stream and everything. But, okay. Absolutely loved it. And then I'll be back next week for sure and everything, and we'll be back. So thank you guys for covering. Thanks, Jimmy. While I'm on vacation here. Great episode. 4 out of 5 stars.
Awesome. All right, buddy. All right, thanks, man. We'll jump over here with Jimmy now real quick.
Perfect.
Let me just do a little switcherooski here, my friends. This episode, it's got me. All sorts of fired up. Can you hear me, my friend?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me, friend?
I can. Thank God we got the middle school PA system turned off there. I'm kidding.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
I'm good. All right. So yeah, we were trying to figure out, like Matt and I before the show, how to get like the whole technical piece worked out. We'll be back to normal next week or whatever, but really glad we got Jimmy in here from the Fantasy Nuttwork, breaking it down. Look at that setup. First of all, this is the first week where I've had to change my setup. I go to literally nothing behind me, and you go to everything. That looks sick, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. That episode was a barn burner. A barn burner. That's the hook, folks. That's the hook.
Right. Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, it was so much. I think I've said the first couple episodes, like, there's been tension. You can feel tension. I felt so much tension, and I'm not even talking about the sexual tension that was going on. I mean, literally, like the whole time, there's something going on between all the different characters, and just everything was so, from Daemon coming in with the crown, the whole 9 yards. It was really just wild. So I guess let's start off with kind of like your big takeaways, overarching thoughts about the whole episode. But then we can kind of go back through and break it down and walk through it.
I mean, I just got to ask a question. Do you really think that Viserys sent that maester? Because I don't. I think Otto Hightower sent that maester.
Oh, dude.
Now here's my question: is that moon tea or is that poison?
That is, I think it's moon. It's got it's moon tea, I'm thinking.
And my next question is, does Rhaenyra think that it's really from her father after the conversation they had? And there's 2 points to this, right? you could poison Rhaenyra, that'd be pretty suspicious. Or Otto saying, I do think that you betted and that you are going to get pregnant. And if Rhaenyra has Daemon's child and that happens to be a male, that line of succession is ironclad dunzo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no mistake that as soon as that pin comes off, the old maester from Old Town walks in with some moon tea. I don't know. There's questions. Right. There's questions also.
Man.
Did Daemon and Rhaenyra do it?
It was hard to tell. It was not dark clear in there.
It's not clear. Her pants were at her knees when he walked away from her.
Right.
But I got this feeling that it stopped before it went too far. So just like Fire and Blood, everything's very ambiguous. And I know some people are going to go, no, obviously they did. I'm just saying there's room for questioning there.
Yeah.
Which makes it, in my opinion, a much more interesting thing for it to be kind of ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
I think that this episode was excellent. My wife looked at me halfway through and we were just like, this is thick. Like, this is thick of full of drama. This is kind of where we've been heading, folks. Like, you know, for the more casual viewer, and they're saying in time jumps and all this stuff, it's like all that groundwork, and even this is still groundwork to things that are going to come that are just going to be mind-blowingly dramatic in the future. And big fireworks are coming. But I think this episode was the hook. Like, I really liked it.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to describe it. I mean, because so many people came into the chat and they were like, I mean, several of them were like, didn't see that coming. Or some of them were like, saw it coming. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, I thought that was going to happen. So you had people sort of like shocked by it, but some people saying like, yep, there we go. And so it reminded me of how many people are coming into this not having read anything, no spoilers sort of moving forward. So as we talk about this,
there's changes.
There's changes.
Yes.
Dude, I cannot believe just how honestly how good. I kept like during the live stream, I kept like looking over at Lottie going like, what, like how there was just it was so intense, and it was paced well. You know, something that I want to mention before I forget here. So again, as Jimmy said, great hook. Everyone's in. They're locked in. The prophecy's still around. We still have stuff going on with like Rhaenyra in terms of her being heir, and there's all the political alliances and all that kind of stuff. But like what Game of Thrones, what House of the Dragon does really well is like giving these smaller moments. Nothing feels rushed. Like there's moments of silence where it just lingers, and you can tell like when Daemon is thrown down there, slowly Viserys walks in. A couple of times, like there's just these moments, and they do such a good job at building suspense and just taking us on this journey that like the whole time I'm like, people are like, why are you being so quiet? Why are you like, you know, they're like during the live stream, I'm like, guys, it's so intense that I'm just sort of like,
well, you had to pay attention. They had to pay attention.
To.
Did you see who Massaria had come into her little den?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The narc. It was the boy who ran and told Otto. So here's my question.
Dude,
I have a ton of questions. I have a question of whether Rhaenyra and Daemon actually did it. I have a question about who sent that maester. I think we'll find out that answer soon. And then my next question is, so is that Massaria's plan? Because my wife says, well, the boy wasn't in there. He didn't see them doing anything. And I said, he didn't have to. Massaria probably owns that, you know, knows everyone in that whorehouse.
Right.
So my question is, did Daemon scheme with Massaria to do this, to cause this rift? Because here's the thing. Daemon came back from the stepstone, bends the knee. All is good. There is some time that has passed between last episode and now, obviously. But I believe this is all kind of Daemon's plan. Like Daemon wants to sow that discord and get Otto, by the way, let's get Otto out of the picture. So like, I don't know how much Daemon is involved with the little, you know, tattletale boy who runs off.
Right.
So I'm just very curious. That's a big question I have. Is that Massaria? Because one of my predictions from the changes for book and the show, I said Massaria is going to play a way bigger role, like in the narrative, and she is already. So that's a huge question and a small piece that you could have missed, because you know, that's the stuff I love about this show and the books, is that it's subtleties. And that kid just runs in, runs out. You know, if you weren't paying attention, looking at your phone for a second, you missed that connection. That's a huge piece. I need to go back and rewatch that scene for the dialogue, because I wasn't catching it all. So I need to go back and rewatch for that for sure. Did you notice that this episode was layered and stacked in a way that it kept getting Rhaenyra closer to talking to her dad the entire episode?
Yeah.
The
Wow.
last,
Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
the last conversation she has is with the queen, but before that, it's Damon, right? So like she's getting higher and higher, Kingsguard, and then eventually it all kind of comes to this climax of a discussion between
Yeah.
the heir and the king,
Yeah.
a,
Yeah.
a father and a daughter,
Yeah.
and that had so much tension. You want me to
That
quell your political headaches? You are my political
you
headache.
are. Yeah. Wow. And dude, you're right. So from the beginning, right? She's on her tour, distant, right? And then slowly she's getting closer. She's made decisions that weren't going to go down. She's talking to, as you said, Allison, about like, how is he? Is he mad? Is he upset? Well, I mean, he's frustrated, right? That you still have turned everyone away, and she's out there just did this open roll call in terms of like suitors or whatever. And you're right, that did help build sort of that the way you articulate that is really good. Like she just sort of finally at the end gets to that big conversation. She's going to do her duty, but he has to do his. And you bring up some really interesting points with like, so I've been saying all along, like this whole episode, I am team Allison. I'm not saying I'm team Green. I'm just saying I am team Allison right now, dude. I cannot, and I'll tell you why in a second here. Bold, right? But so you bring up a good point. When that like that boy runs out, something that was said between Viserys and maybe it wasn't Viserys, but it's implied somewhere, and I have to go back and listen to the dialogue on this. But like Daemon he's a liar. He's a manipulator. He understands. Before he left, he wanted Otto Hightower out, and so he comes back. He sees his brother still trying to aid him in an odd way. He doesn't want that. He wants to prove himself. He comes back, gives him the crown. But like you said, you could go one of two ways with this. Either Hightower has been secretly put the White Worm, right, which is what she was called, or what the informant was called, and that is Lady. That's Massaria. He either put her next to Daemon and has had her there for a while, or Daemon is using her to pass that information on, knowing that his brother will do this and send Otto away. I mean, so good. That's just such a good thing.
And another small note is that at the beginning of the episode, we get that little weird scene where they're all in that like little huddle. Daemon notices that Rhaenyra and Viserys are not on good terms. Like he notices that, and he kind of looks at her with like, that Matt Smith long look.
That's true.
And then we get into the, now the next night, they have the conversation next to the werewood and that little seating area in Valerian. So I'm just saying Matt Smith Daemon may have been able to play the White Worm against Otto in this instance. So that's kind of a question that I have going forward. There's a lot of questions to go forward. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was the juxtaposition of Alicent underneath King Viserys, which is extraordinarily hard to watch.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have the Daemon scene, but it switches from the Daemon scene where he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
To Rhaenyra using her position.
I know.
Where Kristen Cole can't say no.
He can't say no. And that's, I'll go ahead and say it. I said it the whole episode. And like people were in here, how could you be saying Team Alicent? I'll tell you right now, she look at the position she's in, used by her father, sent in there, the whole thing. She and I mean, Viserys says this, she was a pleasant distraction, a well-placed distraction that he fell for hard. And so you have that going on. You have Rhaenyra sort of saying in the beginning, what I forget how she framed it, but in a sense, being locked in a castle and just being forced to produce heirs, which is essentially. And then she says sorry. She says sorry to Alicent because that's exactly what Alicent is sort of going through. And then everyone is Team Rhaenyra, right? They're all Team Rhaenyra, and Alicent here is just getting waylaid with all of these, like abuses, essentially. I mean, she's queen, though. That's the thing I want to remind people is she is the queen. And so when she steps up and says, I'm the queen, I'm sort of like, you know what? This girl has gone through a lot. She has tried her very best to kind of console him. And I think she feels sincere. So here's the thing. What I was always wanting them to do is to really build this division. And that is this episode, as you said, being the hook. It does that because I can right now start to say to people, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do this, but like Rhaenyra just lied across the board to everybody. And she just coerced that I mean, he feels like he owes her something, which she takes advantage of because she gave him the greatest honor that House Cole has ever had. Right. I guess that got, elevated in this episode. An even greater honor was bestowed upon him, being with the princess. As in her terms, I don't, It's crazy. So she's like sexually frustrated before she goes into this scene. Damon starts all of that. I don't think he knew that it was going to go that way or whatever. He has a whole nother, like situation, but she takes advantage of that, uses it. So it's such a crazy thing because people were going back and forth. The first 3 episodes, you really like Rhaenyra. Damon's sort of all over the place. I keep rooting for him to like be good with his brother. And I already know what happens.
Now.
And it's like, I already know. And I'm just sitting there wanting this to happen. And man, so they've really got us going in 2 different, supporting different groups, different houses, different whatever, because Hightower has played this game so well that you really can't quite tell, 5 days, right? In 5 days, he then becomes Hand of the King. And since then, he has been very masterful about how he's gone about this and just waited for this opportunity. Alicent has been around and he's looking for this alliance. I think because of chance, he really, with Emma Aaron dying and stuff, he uses Alicent there. But I think he was ready to use her in another way, in another type of alliance, maybe to Daemon. You know what I mean? Who knows? So.
And Rhaenyra swore on her mother's memory that Daemon did not touch her, which he touched her. I mean,
he more than fair. Yeah.
I don't, I saw someone say in the chat, they think that Daemon might be impotent. And like, I'm starting to kind of wonder that too. Cause now we've seen him, with Mysaria and it didn't work. And now here, punching the wall out of frustration. It's like, is he too much in his cups? Is this some sort of regret? Like, I feel like Daemon most likely did set up the White Worm auto thing. I feel like we're leaning more towards he knows about all of it, right? And the kid gets paid right in front of him, these kind of things. And him punching the wall is probably like him knowing how messed up this all is. But he wants to keep Otto Hightower as far away from the Iron Throne as possible, I think.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely does. And he's willing to go to these extremes to even, create more division between he and his brother. And like you said, I don't think he really had this plan in his mind necessarily until he sees in that huddle the division. What's actually going back? What's going on here back at the, in the realm in Westeros in King's Landing. And he looks over and he sees something's up. This is the heir. And actually, it's so skillfully done too, because Daemon takes her out. And as Matt was saying in our chat earlier, he shows her truths. Right. She sees from the small folk how she is, viewed and what the realm is going to accept or not accept. And it's the same thing with Rhaenys, the queen who was passed over. She told her that same truth. Everyone kind of keeps saying this. And Daemon knows that this is, he knows how this is going to go. And so it's such a crazy thing because he does offer almost like a legitimate option here. But it's just, because somebody was asking the question why they're like, why is Viserys so upset with this?
Well, one, it's his daughter. Two, we do know that the Sept is not going to be happy. You know what I mean? They're not going to the religion's not going to be happy with this kind of proposal. But also, I think on top of that, I think Viserys is starting to buy in the fact that Daemon would be the next Maegor the Cruel, that Otto has been pounding into him over and over and over again, which I think at one point Viserys rejects that. But now that we get further and further down the line and Viserys' mind is going, it really feels like he might actually believe the propaganda that Daemon is Maegor, which is absurd because Maegor is like arguably the worst person in Westeros history. And we know that Daemon is not that guy.
Right.
He might be a little mad, but he's not that level of cruel, in my opinion. So I think part of the propaganda is probably playing against him. The fact that it's his daughter, and also like just why didn't Daemon just go to Viserys? The answer is because he wants to sow discord, for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's the way, as you said. And again, we have a lot of questions, but the main one is like who set this up? Who is because Otto? I actually kind of believed his performance when he was like, wasn't sure whether I wanted to bring this information to you or not. I think Otto is smart enough to know by doing this. He has got to be smart enough to know that he's right there, that he has a grandson who potentially could be heir. He's invested in this. It's his daughter, Alicent, who is queen, and he has grandchildren there. This is almost seems like he gets played. I mean, I feel like it's like he gets played a little bit and then he'll come back and counter, but it's hard to see. It seems like he was just like innocently fed this information, but Daemon seemingly masterminded this whole thing.
Yeah, and honestly, when Otto got the pin taken off him, like that was kind of an oh shit moment for me on the couch. Like I was like,
Yeah.
Oh, we're doing
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Okay. All right. And then, and then the next scene for the Maester to bring in the Moon Tea. I mean, we're talking Grand Maester conspiracy level stuff
Oh
here.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh
this is
yeah.
very exciting for some, and I'm trying to explain it to my wife. I'm like, you don't understand. It's been like 2 decades. People talking about, I'm like, but it's not book canon yet. So we're not sure, it's just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
first and foremost, this is a lot of fun for people who are fans of the series, whether it be show or books. But I really felt like this was the best episode because I think it has the most questions coming out of it, whereas a lot of the other stuff was very like it was trying to formulate the pieces to get to this moment. And now this is our first big step up when it comes to all the drama. The drama is thick with 3 C's, I think. Also, Sir Harwin caught Rhaenyra running through the city, and I wonder if his testimony will be played at some point in the future.
Well, so I was thinking about this. When you see they have done this episode is actually a masterpiece and is extremely well thought out because it can go in so many different directions.
Yeah.
And if you know the story and you know where this is going to go, you'll understand like the hint that I'm about to drop here, which is that Harwin is there. She is out, like running around with Daemon and running into different people that night, and things could have happened. It's all perception, right? She had a close encounter in a dark alleyway with Sir Harwin Strong. What happened between them? They get a little. I mean, it's, people can kind of almost like, I don't know, throw out whatever like that. Something happened there. Something happened with Daemon. So it's just interesting that he's there. Does he now? I don't know. Does he see a different side to her? Does like how does that information too that he has play this is not something that's going to be known at large. It's going to be a secret sort of inside King's Landing, kept real tight-lipped, So him knowing that and knowing she was out, who does he talk to next? You know what I mean? That's
a very good question. It's a very good question. Also, seeing Flea Bottom, let's go. I just love Flea Bottom so much. Knowing my boy Dunk is from there, that's just the best. For me, I think there was more tension in most of the dialogue exchanges than there was in that entire last 10 minutes of last week, which I know everyone loves the action from last week. And well, some people don't like it, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. But I never felt like the stakes were super high. Whereas that final scene between Rhaenyra, like just all of the Rhaenyra and Viserys to Otto to the Maester and Rhaenyra, like that had more tension for me than like anything else in the show thus far. I mean, big moments.
Yeah, I mean, really, someone was mentioning stuff here because this episode sort of set up a lot of question marks, like a ton. Yeah. And so like people are talking about Daemon and when he's in there with Rhaenyra, I think he does have a lot of respect for her. I actually think he does see her as I don't know, very cunning, very intelligent. And again, that would all be good and well, but at the same time, he's also looking for an avenue to the throne, and in a way to sort of be a bigger player in this versus just being a second brother who is what's his role, to be married to someone from the Vale and whatever. I mean, that's not what he wants. He wants this epic sort of, he wants to be in the thick of it, right next to power or power itself. I mean, so I don't know. I think he has respect for her, and I think he kind of was like, he did this, he went this far. Maybe he has some actual lust for her and just didn't want to kind of do it, or he was beating himself up a little bit, maybe a little tormented. I don't know. It was so it's got me wondering, what was that all about?
Yeah.
Because he set this up. I feel like he really set this up. So it just is crazy.
Yeah, even in an episode where Daemon kind of falls into the backdrop by the end of the episode, a lot of he is the catalyst to a lot of this stuff happening. He's the agent of chaos right now in King's Landing. That is tremendous. Oh, thank you for the 5 spot.
There we go. Thank you very much. And so is this talking about the
Blackwood, baby? Blackwood. Let's go. He gets called a dumb guy.
Yeah. And first of all, I was rooting for him. He was sitting there doing his very best to kind of like put this forward. I felt for him too. I felt like he was this kid in school who was supposed to give a speech and he's sitting there like, freaking out a little bit or whatever, giving a presentation. And Bracken's over here making fun of him. And I was like, the guy, I mean, he's a bully. Bracken's a freaking bully. And so to see him just run him through was kind of intense. So yeah, shout out there.
And he's Bloody Ben, known by his men, if you go back into the lore. So for him to be in here, and he's mentioned in the Dance of Dragons at some points.
See,
So
that's freaking wild.
that was a good little thread for them to throw to us. And obviously I thought it was just absolutely hilarious. Also, dude, did you mark out for Lord Dondarrion?
Oh, I know.
Come on.
So I wonder, I was actually up here watching it. And so my wife Lottie was sitting over here. And so the first scene is him talking. I'm sitting here thinking, what's going on? They're talking about Dorne and whatever. And then I saw her immediately do this kind of like perk up, like look over, and it's sort of like, wait, what's going on? She's a few seconds ahead of me. Come to find out, this is a whole line of people that are essentially trying to, propose marriage or be courted or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was cool to hear his name. And then to see him here, it was so ridiculous. But yeah, then a mention of Dorne too, which is interesting. I keep thinking that since he mentioned that, I was sort of like, yeah, what is going on down there? And will that come up? Is that going to be mentioned? Is anybody going to be sent to
I think so.
King's Landing? Yeah.
I think it'll probably expand as the seasons go on. We're going to get some added threads, if I could imagine, maybe even in the free cities, especially because they keep getting brought up. Like it's being brought up a lot more than I thought it would be. That's hinted that Corlys is shopping around Lena to be married to someone from the free cities. That's a pretty big event, and a big threat really to the realm. I also really enjoyed Rhaenyra's little snide remark about being prisoned in a castle and squeezing out babies. Kind of a flip from last week where Alicent makes a very snide remark about childbirth not being that bad to Rhaenyra, whose mother had passed. So like we kind of got the flip flop, and this episode feels a lot more sympathetic towards Alicent in a lot of ways. So I think it's really building those sides up really, really well.
Yeah, it was interesting because Alicent actually seemingly wants to, like, her father's playing his own game. He's got his daughter where he wants her, and I feel like she's the queen. He has been the, I don't know, like I guess the kind of the lead player for House Hightower, but I feel like all of a sudden now she's still real innocent and young and whatever. Because she goes to Rhaenyra and totally, like, I felt like she believed her, didn't you? I mean, she goes back and like defends her and even says it's Daemon. I don't know Rhaenyra to be dishonest. And we're sitting here when she said, what did she say? She's like, he didn't touch me, or I didn't touch him, or whatever.
Swear by mother's memory that he never touched me.
I was sitting here going, hold on a second. We all saw him touch you.
I had to double check. I said I better rewind that scene.
Yeah, I was like, hold on a second. This is crazy. You're calling us all liars out here. I mean, so that was a huge, just a sympathy thing. Yeah. All of this is being done in front of the werewood.
Yes, I was about to say the third conversation between them now that has happened in front of the werewood. There's no way that's on accident. There's no way.
No, not at all. Something else too. When I was thinking about the werewood, and I was thinking about dragons and the extra sort of level and the layers of lore here, they do a really good job in terms of building back to Aegon and beyond Aegon with the dagger, and they're speaking in that whole scene where Daemon is speaking to Rhaenyra in High Valyrian. Like that's that whole, I mean, it's like, I think it's like 2 to 3 minutes where we're reading subtitles, right? Yeah. And they're just talking to one another. And like, that feels so real. When you think about, if you're making this show, how are we going to depict and show you the, the house of the dragon and make it feel like they are different, not just the hair, not just whatever, but like, no, they speak in a different language to each other. They come from a whole different place. Like it's a whole nother level. So it distinguished them a lot more to have. I'm talking like 2 to 3 minutes of straight, like we're just reading subtitles. And I was like, man, it's a couple moments where it's broken up and it's really good conversation if you're reading and paying attention to what they're saying there. So
I mean, also there were servants clearing tables. So if you notice, whenever they're speaking in the common tongue, they actually are like, Daemon almost takes the traditional stance, like, that's how it is. Then he goes into and then he changes his language and he's like, my bronze bitch this, my bronze bitch that.
Yeah. Good point. That's a good point. I didn't even notice that, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense that you would want to, because he seems to be way more in tune to, they're all playing this game. They all want to be close to dragons. And he seems to want to, I don't know, he doubts that his brother can see these things or that his brother is going to be in tune to this stuff.
Yeah.
And so Daemon really wants to kind of bring back the fire of these dragons. And I thought it was crazy that Viserys said too, when talking to Otto, or just when I think it was even Alicent, just how they were both young. They have the blood of the dragon. They are of the house of the dragon, meaning they have this chaotic sort of fiery spirit. And he just knows that's just him. That's his family, right? So you're like, okay, there's a self-acknowledgement from, one of the Targaryens to say, yeah, we're just different. I mean,
yeah, and Daemon clearly wants to get back to more of the traditional way of ruling with way less other families, blood, lords involved. That's why he's saying we can kind of restore this, and that's why he wanted to be the hand. Like, say what you want about Daemon, but he cares about the Targaryen name very, very much, and I think that he might be under the impression that people like Otto should not be the hand, and there shouldn't be a small council full of Strongs and everything else. It should be Targaryen only. Let's repopulate this earth a little bit over here. I think
right.
Because even when he talks to Corlys Velaryon, who's extraordinarily close in blood, he says, that's my brother. You can't talk about him like that.
Yes. Good point. Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah, because again, you would think that they have more sort of relation to them, more history, more whatever, with House Velaryon. And speaking of them, Corlys, they're all absent. Did not return. And I thought to myself, okay, so he's making what was it, the Sea Lord of Bravos, right? He's making
Lena.
So Lena there. Now I'm trying to think about how this might like play into the whole Game of Thrones. He's doing that. Is it false? I mean, is he really intending that? Did he just do it so the rumor of it gets back to King's Landing, so that way, you know what I mean? And then he severs that potential, just knowing what it would do to the small council and Otto Hightower. That's the level these guys are playing on,
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, a change for the show could be that, again, that the free cities get involved and say, hey, putting this person on the throne keeps us happy. Putting this person on the throne makes us want to go to war. I don't know.
Yeah.
That could be a change. I do think we'll see, Dorne and the Free Cities a little bit more involved in the show. I think that they're going to pull from that, because why not make it more dramatic? Right. We're seeing some changes now. This Otto getting de-handed at this moment is not something in the books at this stage. Right. And that is really, really interesting stuff. That's why I said it's an oh shit moment for me.
Yeah, it is. It really was. So I couldn't tell whether or not like Viserys, I go back and forth on. Like he gets drunk, he's happy. I don't know.
He lost me a bit. He lost me a bit. With him in the Alicent scene. I mean, it was really hard to watch, and it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't like. I'm not a fan of Viserys, and now the performance is amazing. I enjoy the character. The character's actually a lot better in the show than he is in the books, but also seeing like the sores on his back and he's degrading, and cut off the hand, bro. Like just get rid of the hand.
Get rid of it.
Just like he got rid of Otto, get rid of the other hand. Your real hand.
Now, yeah, right, exactly. So, okay, Matt and I were talking before the show too about like, do you think there's anything going on in terms of like a poisoning? Or something like the throne being laced with something more, or is it just not being treated well?
I think it's his indecision. I think it's his. Okay. I think it is poor treatment. So like there is absolutely there's a feasible route where the Maesters are not treating him well. But with that said, especially at this time in the game where the heir hasn't been changed, you probably want him to hang on a little more until you can manipulate him to put Aegon on the throne, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's feasible that the Maesters aren't doing their best. But I also feel like Viserys' indecision to, again, just kind of cut the rotting fingers off before it spreads, or the arm off, it shows his indecision as king. I mean, it's a complete illustration of every issue that he has as a ruler. He cannot make any decisions. He bounces back and forth. He is a weak king. So I think that the sickness spreading is definitely allegory for his rule.
Well, something else too, I guess if you're House Hightower and you're close, as they are with the Citadel and the Maesters, and you're looking for weaknesses or you're looking for things that you could exploit, I don't know that this is happening to every, I don't know. I like, if it's that dangerous to sit on the daggone throne, I mean, I feels like he's drunk a lot, and he's
getting toasted.
He's getting, but I feel like you could say later on, if you're the Hightower, is like, look, guys, there's a history of this. You know what I mean? Like what things could get really rapidly worse at a time of their choosing. And there's already context for, well, look what's been happening this whole time. I mean, so like this is just, it kind of, I don't know, when if you're observing and you're looking for a weakness or sort of just a way in or a possibility, an avenue that you can use later on. That's, I mean, you kind of see one there.
Yeah, and you know, I think Otto, for everything that we can say about him, he's a snake, he's a schemer, all these things. I don't think that he wants an outright civil war. I don't believe that is his path. I think that he has been scheming for multiple rulers to get to this point where he can put maybe somebody on the Iron Throne of his bloodline. But I don't believe that he wants to go into a civil war, especially one that involves weapons of mass destruction called dragons. Right. And I think that Daemon is basically pushing the envelope and saying, we'll do it.
Right, exactly. So we have Jay in here talking about Daemon being a better medieval king, a better warrior, ruthless against crime, all that kind of stuff. You know, he's different. He's absolutely different. And then Matt, as Matt's saying here, he isn't the worst king, but it's almost like he's like almost like an idealist. Like he wants the realm to operate and things to go this way, and he wants to just be king or whatever. Whereas Daemon is coming in saying there are real enemies around you that you've almost been kind of like okay with just them being there. But then Viserys will come back with sort of like, no, I do see them. So it's this back and forth where you're sort of like trying to figure out, you know, who would be better for whatever. I mean, because Jaehaerys, the old king, was coming off of this really long sort of
the best king. He's the best.
He is the best. I mean, he really is.
Besides my boy back here, but you know.
Wow. Okay. Traitor. That's a traitorous statement.
Rest in peace.
That is a traitorous statement. But anyway, speaking of the Baratheons, that is something that I've been trying to pay more attention to, because we're back closer to Aegon the Conqueror and sort of their line and this bastard line that is there in House Baratheon. It's just interesting. You know what I mean? It's just something to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah, the Baratheons are very close to the Targaryens all throughout history.
Right. So, and just in, you know, which side are they going to pick? I would love to get, you know, people's comments on that. Like, you know, who are they really gonna support? Because you guys can clearly see, if you're just coming into this, you can see this going in different directions, right? You can see that it's either Rhaenyra, right, or it's going to be Aegon the Second. There's going to be a fight at some point, and it seems like Viserys he looks weak. He looks like he's cut up. It looks like he might not last. It looks like
he has MRSA.
He's got something. Yeah, like I mean,
serious staph infection.
It is bad. It is bad. And so who knows how much more longer he's going to be around. But, you know, I want to go back to something, because Alicent, for me, and it could just be the acting or the way they're directing this, but like, she feels so sincere, even though she's being put in this position and she knows sort of like that it's to get, you know, House Hightower closer and heirs and stuff. It's still like, is that all that bad? And it's like what Viserys says. I mean, I'm not talking about Otto using his daughter.
Right.
Sorry. I'm talking about like the idea that the house in general would want to become closer through marriage alliances and stuff to House Targaryen and stuff, you know, whatever. But because from that perspective, it's sort of like, okay, he's just trying to, I mean, you know, Viserys says that he sees this. He says that like all of these individuals, not just Otto, all of them that have ever sat on the small council and been around these Targaryens, all have self-interest. They all want a piece of the pie. They're all trying to get close. He's not stupid. So that's where I go back. I wrestle with him a little bit in terms of like, he's actually pretty locked in on that, but it seems like he wants to forget it for a second, or he just doesn't want to pay it too much mind. He's happy that he has a son. He's caught up in this family and the heir and preserving it and wanting things to stay. He is like a dragon of peace. He was there during a time of peace. He grew up under the
He's
old
extremely
king.
passive. He's extremely passive. Yeah. Which leads to all kinds of problems.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely, and that's where Daemon's trying to say, like, he's looking out for him, right? He's looking out, but at the same time, he doesn't feel like his brother is doing enough. And so, yeah.
One note I want to make on Alicent, and I said this on my stream on my channel this past week when I was talking about episode 3, is the fact that, like, if we look at Alicent and we look at what's happened to her, you know, her and Rhaenyra are a little bit distant. Now in this episode, they kind of come back together a bit. But whenever she's being sent off to the king and being used by her father, and now she's the queen, so she's already like weirdly distant from other people, right? Like she can't just connect. You know, the only people that she really has that can be a genuine relationship where it's not something that is owed or is there like conflict there is with her children. And her children obviously are a point of contention in in King's Landing at this point and will continue to be. And
Yeah.
is it that surprising that she will then become, you know, completely dedicated to her children and their futures? No, it's not, because they're the only people who aren't asking something of her. So I do think she's very sympathetic in that way. And I think that her logic will make sense going forward.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's where you can get a lot of people kind of getting behind her and saying, "Hold on a second, you know, like I get why people would buy in there." Now, what we're gonna, and I don't want to get into any of the spoiler stuff, but and they could be changing at this point, Jimmy. Like it could be changing. Stuff seems to be kind of, they're making changes that Germ said would be good.
I dig
it. TV. Yeah, and I do too, because this whole thing has got me like my mind running in terms of like, how much of a player is Daemon in terms of like, did he think about on the way? You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. That's a massive question. That's a massive question, because let's just say for fun that Daemon didn't know that kid who came into the den, and it was Massaria, and she is the White Worm only for Otto, and she is she's been placed next to Daemon on purpose.
Yeah.
That is a massive, massive piece of the puzzle, and that is a huge implication going forward, because we know things from the book. I don't know what's going to change, but I hope we get a straight up answer. I mean, I think it's implied that Daemon knows. I think it's implied, but
yeah,
I'm curious.
Yes, I do too, but it would be so crazy. I get what, I guess I'll say this. With knowing what we know about from the books, without going into spoilers, I did not even know that there was a connection between Otto and like his spy network. I thought it was more just people, I don't know, servants, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did not know that his spy network included this individual. And so that is mind-blowing and has a lot of implications. And that's what Jimmy and I are kind of freaking out about a little bit, because it's something that we wanted questions, we wanted answers, and we're getting those. And I think
and
right
even
now,
more questions.
even more questions. I think anybody who walked into this, because you want people to have a seat at I never want to feel like the guy who's, we've read the books and we sort of know what's happening. And I also didn't want the show to make people feel that way either. And it hasn't. That's exactly the thing. You can walk right in here and you can talk at your water cooler about all the different potential. And you know what? You could pick up on things that I think sometimes book readers might overlook and say, nah, it's going to turn out this way. But like right now, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea how they could be. Like the changes could be so big that I know. I feel like George, after season 8, I feel like he's more like, hey, you know what? I mean, there's two different stories here. There's two different paths. Let's entertain people. Let's make a good story. And
yeah, I agree. I think fidelity to the source material is sometimes overstated. I think sometimes, in fact, having infidelity from the source material can also be really interesting, especially for a different medium that is television. So, all the changes thus far, I'm in. I'm pretty happy with.
Did you like, so somebody's talking about, just like the throne, and when Daemon comes back and he holds out the sword or whatever, and he says, add it, right? Yeah, add it to the rest. I was like, oh, he knows how to make an entrance. I mean, he knows
my wife said that Daemon with a haircut looked like Brienne. She goes, I'm getting real big Brienne vibes right now.
Really?
And I was like, son of a bitch, I can see it.
So okay. Let's transition into some more risque stuff here, which is I normally leave this up to Sir Matt, but he's
bend
not
the knee after hours.
This is after hours, but like, I did not think they were gonna show what they showed. I didn't think they were gonna.
They were kissing, they were hugging, they were licking, they were sucking.
All of it, and
short strokes everywhere.
Have to say, the actress that plays Rhaenyra, they definitely were. And so like, as she's walking through, it's such a crazy thing to be watching this and to see her going, like, she did such a good job. Just her acting skills are literally, I hope this girl gets tons of work and other stuff, because literally, man, when she's walking through, and it's off-putting, because at first we want to be like, whoa, this is a little messed up or whatever, but the way she in a real sense, is a young girl who just got showed all these things outside of the castle that she's not supposed to see, got a little truth lesson there, and then walks down the dark alley to a pleasure house and the look on her face, I can't imagine a youngster, a teenager who wouldn't walk into a place and go like, like, oh my gosh, like I mean, she captured that or whatever, and was just sort of like, wow, this is exciting, this is crazy.
Well, and
I don't
everyone's,
know.
when you go to a club and everyone's dancing, you're the only one not dancing. Matt's wedding, everybody was dancing. I said,
Everybody,
I'm going to get on the floor and bust a move a little bit.
let's
We
go.
had to kind of do the hokey pokey.
I know.
And, when in Rome, she's in there, everyone else is doing their thing. And she's like, well, I don't want to be left out.
Okay, so let me, since this point has come up or whatever, I don't know. You could tell me again in the book. I can't really even remember. Was it ever explicitly stated? And I have to go back and look, and we can, and not to put you on the spot, but I'm just thinking, like, I don't remember it being, because as they were even standing there, I was like, are they actually going to do this? Is he actually even going to kiss her or touch her or do anything? Or is he just showing her this and that's enough? And the perception will.
It is unclear in the book.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. And
also, I mean, the Sir Kristen Cole stuff, guys, this is answers. Like, these are answers that we had.
Answer.
Straight answers.
I mean, so, okay. Oh, as you're watching that, right, that scene, did you think he was going to stop her? Like, what did you think?
I think he did. He kind of tried at the beginning. And like, I don't think it's a necessarily like he didn't want to at all kind of deal, but like there is a power complex there.
Absolutely.
And, it being in a juxtaposition with Viserys and Alicent, that wasn't on accident at all. Using your title in your power. I mean, there's no way Kristen Cole can say no.
No way.
It's an interesting talking point.
Yeah, it is. It's just one of those things. I'm sure we'll get, some more comments about it. What do you do there? I mean, what's the right?
I feel like a lot of people are gonna be pissed off about this episode.
Yeah, me too. Me too, actually.
I mean, not anyone that matters. But I see it every time, anytime there's nudity on a House of the Dragon or a Game of Thrones episode, like, I really wish they'd stop it with that HBO stuff. And I'm like, guys, HBO's been doing this for 30 years. It is never going to stop. Like, they're going to be graphic. Right. That's why it's HBO.
Yeah. And they put you in these situations where you're like there's a character that you start to like and you think, I really like her. I'm rooting for her. And then she goes and does all of this. And you're like, well, wait a second. But also her uncle pulled her out and kind of started that whole thing. But then she comes back in here and is all caught up in it. And it's like this young fire, this hormones running wild, comes back from that journey and makes a big mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, again, in the moment, I don't even want to get into it. I don't even want to wade into it.
There's a lot of sides to this. Like, I got to say, we throw around the term gray characters and yada, yada, yada. To this point, I feel like it's been relatively on the nose for most people in the show, like most of the cast. Now things are things are getting dirty and it's getting messy, and people love nothing more than that, especially the general audience. Like, the general audience is going to eat this up. This will probably be like, the episode people are going to have conversate the most about. It's not going to be so much like, oh, did you see the dragons? You know what I mean? It's going to be like, what did you think of Daemon and Rhaenyra? Did they or did they not? Right? Like, those are the questions they're going to be at the water cooler tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. So here we go. There's a reason behind all of the sexualization, though. These characters are human, and sort of getting to that human thing. And that's why I said, like, the actress, as she's going through there, you can't help but to kind of, what would you do? I mean, what would you do in that situation? She's out there with her uncle. She also has sort of this, I don't know, rebellious sort of spirit. She's a blood of the dragon. I mean, so she's out there doing that. So I think you're right. I think a lot of people are going to look at this and say, it's just what would you, what do you do?
Daryl Henry says, if she were the queen, I could see him not having the power to say no, but he serves the king. He could have walked out after she kissed him. I agree with you, Daryl, but I also believe that the fact that she chose him for the Kingsguard, and rose his family from that to the highest, even though it's to the king didn't even know who Kristen Cole was. She picked him. I think that there's a personal debt there, that he probably feels. And again, I'm not saying it was like, totally, he was like, no way, you're gross. Like, he clearly didn't feel that way.
No, it shifts actually as you watch it. I mean, the acting is crazy in this, but he totally sort of, the first time she kisses him, right, he just sort of, nothing, doesn't whatever.
Well, did you also notice that when Daemon and her are in the brothel and they're making out, whenever Rhaenyra takes control over it and starts to try to kiss him and bite him,
Yeah.
That's when he stops. Do you feel like the fact that maybe he knows that he's setting this up to be a big public thing that's going to get back to the king? Do you think in that moment he like sees the corruption
Yeah, and
and it bothers him?
I think he's bothered by what's going on here. Like, I think he got in too deep. You know what I mean? Or
I don't
not,
think.
yeah, maybe not deep enough. I don't know, but like, yeah, got it. So like, but he's sitting there realizing, okay, I have done this thing. She is now. She's as fiery as he is.
Yeah.
And I think he's caught off guard by that and is really realizing, like, I mean, I think in a weird, crazy way, I think the respect or like what he feels for her increases. And I don't mean in like, I think he was sort of like, wow, I've, because she's then passionate about him. You know what I mean? I know that it's all, again, she takes all that frustration and sexual tension out on Sir Kristen Cole, but it's there. And at some level, she's like, she knows it's her uncle and knows that he's blood of the dragon, and still, I don't know. She's always had this though. If you look back over the episodes, this is what people were coming into the chat saying. I saw this coming. You could see it in her eyes. You could see it in the grin that she had with her uncle. She found him interesting and more.
My wife was like, I don't care. I'm shipping those two. I'm cheering for it before the episode. And when it was happening, she's like, good. I was like, this is a weird show.
Wow. It is. It's a very weird show. Yeah. It's so wild to think that they're, again, I mean, that's her. And then for Viserys to come in there and say, that's my daughter. Right. And then you already have a wife. And then they're bringing up Aegon head too. Like, I'm going to take this back to the way in which, like, keep it in the family. I mean, like, there's two different, I don't know, like,
it also shows like a lot of range to Daemon in a lot of ways, because like control is really important for him. That's why he wants the Targaryens to have the control of power totally, right? And we see him lose control from Rhaenyra then taking the advancement. Like, she takes, control of that situation, and it doesn't make him happy. He stops. He feels wrong about it. But then like we also see him thrown on the floor. And we saw last episode him walk out of a cave with a man's entrails hanging out, fire all around him, all this amazing feat of strength, and Daemon is strong.
Yeah.
And then this episode is underneath his brother's blade, beaten down by the King's Guard after a drunken night, and he's hung over, and he's at the bottom at this point.
Right.
And he's literally on the ground. And it's interesting that when Daemon is close to his brother, he's at his worst. And then whenever he is away from his brother, he's achieving these great things. So I think it just shows the range of Daemon Targaryen as a character, and it way more nuanced than he is in the books. And I really appreciate the portrayal.
Yeah, I like how you say that. I mean, it is something like he really struggles. He gets roped back into this, like all the politics, all the power hungriness, the whatever. He's not at his best. Something with Mysaria, when she's talking to him after he wakes up, that I'm going back just trying to look at the dialogue there. I don't know if you know what I mean. Like, she's mad. I mean, I feel like she's upset a little bit, but like that makes me think it was his plan even more. You know what I mean? Even more, just because she's upset with him, but yet she's also playing. But she was saying too, like, he used to protect her, but does he not now? Is Otto offering some protection, like you said? I mean, there's a total potential change here in terms of like who she's working for, who she's loyal to. That matters big time.
And false loyalties. She hates Otto at this point, and it's like, I mean, what did the Maester bring her? Is it Moon Tea or is it not?
Yeah, yeah, you do. I know. I mean,
the king didn't send it. The king didn't send. There's no way the king didn't send it.
Yeah, until you said that, I was sort of like, okay, I don't. I mean, it
was Maester,
right? So
it's Maester. It was Otto, clearly.
And they're just saying from your father, he still has this last sort of thing that he can do as he leaves, being hand of the king.
Well, and the Maesters work for Otto Hightower.
They do. I know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's that closeness. And again, that actually fuels all of the fire in terms of this whole Maester conspiracy. And
it's huge.
It's huge.
Now, let me point out one disappointment about this. Now, and this is me assuming that I'm correct about the fact that the Maesters are kind of they're playing the Game of Thrones, and they're loyal to Hightower because obviously Otto comes from where they are, yada, yada, yada. So the one disappointing thing is that this is show canon. and that we didn't see really any Maester scheming in the main show. So that is like almost a little disappointing to me, but I think that's why the scale of it will just be that these Maesters are corrupted by the High Towers. I don't think it'll be this big grand thing, but who knows? Maybe in the dance we'll see even more.
Well, and that's a really good point, though, that maybe because of the time, and I'm just going to speak vaguely here about this, cryptically, in the time that we saw the Maesters, things were different. The dragons weren't there. The Targaryens weren't there. Things had changed.
Things have changed quite a bit.
They're sitting fat and happy at the Citadel, maybe. So now you look back at the history and you say, okay, we're going to see a different type of energy among the Maesters because they were pretty sleepy and in A Song of Ice and Fire. They're also pretty randy too. But I mean, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is something good. This is going to be, we're going to have to figure out what is it that she drink. She didn't drink it. We don't know exactly what it is. We know what it said to be. Who sent it is also the bigger question, I think. Definitely. So yeah, man.
Naya brings up a good point, Chet. She said, definitely that Maester is poisoning the king. He was also the one who was besides Otto when they went to Dragonstone. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, there's been so many little hints that the Maester is in Otto's pocket. So I really believe that Moon Tea did not come from the king. And it could be as simple as this. Like, I don't really think they're trying to poison Rhaenyra. It's probably more like he really wants to drink that Moon Tea because he does not want a Daemon Rhaenyra baby running around with a claim.
Right. Well, because I mean, at this point, he's out of that position as hand, and you can't really.
Yep.
He's away from the game a little bit. So if there's potential for that, Daemon has outplayed him, and because Daemon is laying on the floor there saying, "Give her to me, marry her to me," right? And that is sort of the full thing that like literally Otto is worried about because Daemon represents strength. House Valerion still, they have a good connection. He knows that Corlys went off and fought a whole war with him.
Yeah.
So there's power there. And then if he does have a child, and also just because Daemon's been, thrown out and sent back to the Vale or whatever, if Rhaenyra has a child by him or Sir Criston Cole or whatever, Daemon is getting called back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the trump card. So you're absolutely right that it very well could have been that it's from Otto and it's not from the king.
We're going to have to come back to this episode multiple times, dude. Like, this is a pivotal moment in the show. And we will come back to it multiple times. We're going to have to think about it a lot more. And I don't know if every question in this episode will ever be answered, but the fact that we get to have these kind of conversations makes this, in my opinion, the best episode. I'm so excited. And for those who have not read the book, this is nothing. Nothing.
This is not
compared to some of the stuff coming down the pipe.
No. And this is, I'm glad you say that because you so like certain characters in this and you can see them where they're at now. And even though they've done some things that you're like, oh my God, this is shocking. Like you said, buddy, I mean, it gets way more intense if they go even close to the books.
Yeah. And this is why I said, some people were very disappointed about Crab Feeder being killed off screen. And I'm like, guys, you don't understand. He's a footnote. Like that's not one. It's not even a big battle. Like,
right.
The CGI budget is not being used there, folks. I mean, a little bit, but nothing compared to what we're going to get. And two, like in the grand scheme of drama in the series, Crab Feeder is nothing. There's so much to look forward to.
Right. Let's. I'm kind of just scrubbing back through here, looking at the episode. Let's talk about a moment that gave me chills, and I'm sure it gave you chills, and I'm sure it gave everybody else chills, which was the freaking dagger getting pulled out and the prince, like from my line, from my blood, the prince, like this song of Ice and Fire, the prince that was promised, right, will come from Aegon's line, and his song will be the Song of Ice and Fire.
So dope. Yeah,
I was like, this is what, like, we thought that we saw a little like preview clip with something. I thought, are there glyphs on that? Like, is there? And it's hidden in flame. Why we couldn't see it before, you know what I mean? It's just like, and then how does it end up with the people it ends up with in the Song of Ice and Fire? Well, you can see it's a Targaryen thing. The Targaryens aren't there; they're in exile. Daenerys is gone. Viserys is, the beggar king. So, yeah, that dagger gets lost. That message gets lost eventually, and we know that, and we see the whole craziness that goes down, with that. And the crazy thing is, we have a freaking show that I mean, essentially. Who is the prince that was promised, right? I mean, you've got Jon out there, still Rhaegar's son, doing his thing,
Yeah,
and the whole show to go along with him. And now you're talking about this dagger. Is that dagger talking about Jon? Was it talking about Dany? Was it, you know what I mean?
It's a good question.
Used by Arya to.
I mean, here's the thing. When I see the glyphs on the thing, I do the Leonardo DiCaprio point at the TV meme. I'm like,
yeah.
Said the book title.
Oh yeah. I mean, so good. And so I felt like it just totally gave me chills. And it was a reminder that like, hey, you know, all this planning, all this horsing around, right? All these different strokes that are going on. They're not
short, mid, long,
long. They're not what we're supposed to be focused on. Okay. Although Viserys is out there doing it himself. I mean, like, it's just like crazy. So like, it's a weird thing because I keep feeling with whenever Viserys is there, I feel like there's a he goes from being laser focused to drunk to blind. I don't know. He's all over the place for me. And so I just can't get my finger on him. And not so sure I want to either because he's totally riddled with something.
Okay.
But yeah, somebody said, keep it secret, keep it safe. I mean, it's exactly like the dagger seemingly is just like the one ring, the ring of power. And it has a message in there. And actually, when you think about that, like, you know, as George is sitting there talking to these different the one ring is evil. I mean, it's evil. So, you know, you think about like, because we get into some deep Winds of Winter theories and some crazy stuff about who's in charge, who's really the bad guy, who really offended who first, and all these territorial claims. But yeah, interesting to think there's a parallel there to the hidden message inside of a dagger that's only revealed by heat or by fire. But that item in the other, you know, not that it is a direct reference, it's it's a dagger, but it's just the fact, the mechanism used to reveal a hidden sort of thing is it's sort of referencing a really dark magical item. So
yeah, and I will say I don't think that the cat's paw dagger is going to be a big deal in the books. I think that this is a show only type thing.
Yeah,
just because like the cat's paw dagger seems to kind of, I don't know. We'll see. I could be wrong. Who knows? But yeah, I like that. I like that parallel that you're drawing there.
You know, man, I'm just looking at the chat here too. It is sad. Sir Kristen Cole, I would wonder from the chat. I want to ask a question to the chat. Like, where do you guys think that is? How do you feel about Sir Kristen Cole? I know I'm opening a can of worms here, but how do you feel about him? How do you think he feels about Rhaenyra? We see several looks between them throughout the after their what's the word, Jimmy? After they couple together. After these things happen, like, daggone you, House of the Dragon, making me, you know, out here talking about this is crazy. But like after that happens, he like looks at her several times and is sort of like almost like at every time, by the way, it's out of it. Like he has his helmet on and he's looking out the corner of his eye, like looking over here, like, hey, are you going to say something? What happened? I mean, like it looks really weird. And she's kind of looking at him like, yeah, I'm not going to say a daggone thing, but he's new there and he's trying to figure out what's up. He loses his honor, essentially. I mean, that's sort of taken from him. Does he resent her for that? Is he, you know, I don't know. I mean,
good question.
I feel like he would resent her maybe, even though they get caught up in this moment, he can't really refuse her, but I feel like he would be pissed. And he's also now walking around. He can't really kind of have that same, I don't know, Kingsguard edge, right?
They now share a secret. And we know that secrets in this series are never good. They never weigh very well on people's consciences. So,
oh my gosh. And I know I shouldn't open this can of worms. Rhaenyra was going to work. He definitely is in love now. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. She's a member of the royal family and he's sworn to protect him. And even, you know, okay, even with like King Joffrey, a lot of times though, he was the king, right? I mean, there's a queen regent, his mother, but they often did things that they didn't listen all the time. No. You know, they didn't do like everything that he said. Some of them were scolded because they did do terrible things to individuals in bedchambers that were awful, right? And or to Sansa. So like they clearly can to some degree stand up and do what's best for the king or whatever. And so it's crazy. It is actually, and I know Jimmy's point is that like he feels something for her because she chose him. And actually, going back and looking at this, it's sort of like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like that wasn't Sir Kristen Cole's choosing is not necessarily. Is it in the book necessarily though? Like that Rhaenyra chose him or whatever?
I can't remember. I don't believe so because he actually Kristen Cole in the books comes to prominence at a tourney at Maidenpool whenever Viserys is getting crowned king. It's not at Aegon or the birth celebration for Emma where she passes or anything. So that's all kind of jammed in here. So he was already into prominence in the books by the time this stuff rolls around. Yeah.
Right. And so they kind of give then the choosing to her, and you're like, okay, if you're talking about differences, you're like, that's a great one. That's a genius sort of change there, because now we're seeing why he would even entertain this idea, I guess, more. Right.
Yeah.
So
makes Kristen Cole very sympathetic.
It does, because I did not knowing what I won't say we'll leave it at that. It makes him very sympathetic.
It'd be very interesting to see what happens going forward.
Yes. Yeah. well said. Okay. Wow. We've gone for about an hour and 14 there. Anything else, man, that you're thinking or feeling? I guess some closing thoughts here before we kind of wrap up.
No, I'm so impressed by the tension that was produced in this episode with very little action at all. And I thought a lot of it almost felt like kind of gothic in a way because King's Landing was the only setting, but like we got more of it. Like, I don't know, running through Flea Bottom, having that fortune teller, let me tell you how you'll die, just like little things like that really got the atmosphere up for me. I dug it. I think it was my favorite episode.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think so too. So far, I mean, it was absolutely, it feels kind of weird sometimes saying it's your favorite episode when it's like the one with like the most nudity and most like sexy. It's like, and as someone said earlier, we're trying to emphasize here, there's a human story element. There's so much intrigue and plotting and political stuff behind all of that is, you know what I mean? It's not just there. It's not empty. It's just not there for, I don't know, for shock value or whatever. I mean, it is, but there's something else to it. I mean, it's shocking, but there's something more. Also, I will say this, the first 3 episodes, there's much more brightness and much more like light and different colors and stuff. This is totally like the lighting and everything is darker, and it's just got like
had a cooler tone to it too.
Yeah, cooler tone. That's a good way to put it, for sure. And when Rhaenyra leaves and she goes past the same sort of dragon skull and all the candles, you're like, okay, you're bringing back a place again. I know where that's at. I remember when they were there. That invokes sort of a like a different, like a memory of her and Alicent, together and stuff. Just that whole setup, like her praying or Rhaenyra being there. So that was cool to see that they're using those sets in that way. But yeah, the tone, the lighting, the cinematography is all still beautiful, but just different because this was a different level of episode. Things were kind of done in the shadows after the sun sets, and there's major sort of implications.
Yeah, there will be more of these episodes going forward. Maybe not all the brothel scenes, but the very dialogue heavy, he said, she said, lots of this coming in the future.
Yeah, for sure. All right, friends. Hey, thanks for popping into the chat here. Thanks for helping us out. A little different format. Sir Matt will be back. I've actually even got something kind of going on. I don't even like he went out there and got sick as well. And yeah, I know. Jimmy's like looking at me like, wait, what?
Grayscale.
Something's going around. So we'll be back to full strength, I think, next week, and we'll have we'll have Matt back in here and be chatting away. But Jimmy, where can folks find you on the internet, my friend?
Yeah, so if you go down in the description, you can check out my channel, the Fantasy Nuttwork. I started a book review channel trying to find the next A Song of Ice and Fire because I loved it so much. I've done A Song of Ice and Fire content on there, and I also am doing weekly streams later in the week after I watch the episode a few times, and I kind of just interact with the chat and get other people's thoughts. So I'd love to have you over there for that, and hey, come find some good books to read as well.
Yeah, Matt and I have been on there a couple times, and it's honestly awesome. Sometimes we just go in there and love to hang out in the chat. It's actually a lot of fun to be in the chat and just to hear what's going on and see reactions. So I appreciate everyone in here too, as well. We're getting some winks and on it, Jimmy. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about.
Appreciate you guys always having me on for these. It's the highlight of my week, man.
Yeah, it's so much fun, dude. We were so glad that you do it because it just adds another element of excitement and conversation. Conversation's always good with you, man. I really do appreciate your insights. They're good. So.
Always.
Yeah. All right, friends. Well, hey, if you guys have a thought, if you want to send us a raven, you can send that to btkcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website, which was built by this man right here. A wonderful website where you can send those ravens in as well. And yeah, be sure to follow me at Womprey_2M. Follow Matt at Super Gains Bros. And friends, we will see you next week. And remember, fire and blood.